Tara, why don't you tell us where you're taking me today?
We're going to Siphon Pass in the Superstition Mountains.
Superstition Mountains.
Yes.
Hi guys, I am so excited to be here today with my best friend in the entire world, Tara.
Hi.
And this is Mixtape, and we are here to show you the deck that we have been collaborating on that Tara created, and that is the Desert Bearot. This is cool. I love this, yeah. So, when did you first have the idea for doing this deck?
Well, we did the first deck together and everyone kept bothering me to reprint them, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to make a whole new one. So it's been over a year since I actually had the idea. But I didn't actually start working on it until October.
So you live in Arizona. We're actually filming right now from the Superstition Mountains, and you were telling me the story that, who is it? The Lost Dutchman?
Yeah, his treasure is buried somewhere out here.
Mm.
So lots of magic in these hills.
So we hiked all the way up here in order to show you guys this deck that is just so cool. It just came out last night. We had a big event here in town at a store called Phoenix General, and they actually helped to make this a reality. So the suits that Tara chose for the different minor arcana suits, do you want to explain what those are, how you chose those?
Sure.
Let's start with bolts.
Okay.
I'll try to find some in here. So the suit of wands
is bolts. And the reason I chose the lightning bolt is because of the monsoon and electric storms that we have here and how they're very powerful.
So bolts or wands corresponding to fire and to energy and direction, and really the element that is the most transformative, the one that is really breathing life into everything.
Every summer when the monsoon comes through the desert and the electric storms happen, it really does reshape the landscape depending on how much water and where it runs. And actually where we're sitting right now is in a basin path where the water runs around these rocks when it rains really hard.
Cool. And then for the suit of cups, the suit that corresponds to water, I'm want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I chose horseshoes because the form of a horseshoe also holds something, luck, which is kind of an intangible fluid thing, sort of like water.
Yeah. So horseshoes are like a container.
Correct.
And something that we were talking about was even the colors that you chose to put in the background of the cards, and the color that you put on the horseshoes is green, right?
Yeah, I chose green for the water because the only place there is green in the desert is where water has been or exists. Otherwise, there's no green.
And that means in the valleys, in the troughs, in the ditches, the
yeah.
washes.
Yeah.
And then for the element of air that would correspond regularly to swords,
I chose feathers because in Native culture they use feathers a lot in ceremonies as like wands to bless things.
and they represent communication too. So
Yes.
you were telling me that a lot of times when you're asking for a sign or just looking for some kind of affirmation, that a lot of times you'll receive feathers.
I do find feathers a lot in my past when I have an affirmation or something like a recollection. It will be a feather. There's been many times in my life that that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose blue for air because the sky here is like so blue.
Yeah.
It looks almost artificial. I bet on this video it's not even capturing how blue it is in real life. It's just extremely. So air to me is blue because our sky is always blue here.
And like you said, the sky is just so totally huge here.
It is. It's one of our biggest attributes in Arizona.
There's two. So we talked about the feathers. I wanted to show actually the aces because I think you did something really cool with these, which I didn't even know until you told me last night. So the 4 aces, actually, yeah, you hold those and I'm going to show them. You want to describe these guys?
The aces are all a type of cactus. So the ace of bolts is a saguaro, and then what was the next one you had? Oh, the ace of horseshoes is an aloe because aloes catch water down in their bottoms.
And then ace of feathers.
Feathers is the prickly pear.
And then this is the ace of eyes.
And that one is a yucca plant.
Very cool. All right, so let's talk about this last suit, which is the suit of eyes, which it would correspond to, I love this guy, the page, he's like a little slot machine.
Yeah, he's banking off nature. He got 3 crystals and it's giving him some coins.
So that corresponds to earth and to pentacles. And what was your thinking? And
well, that one's a little more complicated because it is eyes, but it's kind of a sun and it's sort of coin. It's like all of the things.
the sun disk.
Yeah, it's a sun disk. To me, the sun is the eye in the sky. So it's kind of my own little inside
I like
cryptic
that.
joke or whatever you want to say, but
And it really is the thing that is even if you think of like a regular tarot deck and you see the sun card, the sun really is that giant gold disc. It is that big pentacle.
well, and the other part is like it's what gives life. I mean, the sun and the heat and the warmth in the desert is what is basically giving all the life and all the energy all of the time. Like we're very used to the sun being out
Totally.
all of the time.
So let's look at some of the major cards. And one of my favorites is actually the devil card. So I'm going to show you guys that. Now, we've discussed how the desert is definitely a theme for you in this deck, but also the theme of the bear. And if you've been following Tara and you know that her whole aesthetic is built around the bear. So you have what's called the D Bear Me. D is it DIE as the initials?
Yeah,
Do you want to explain that?
Sure. My grandmother, Elizabeth, her name was Dorothy Elizabeth Eichschnagel. So if you put her initials as a monogram, because she was an embroiderer, so she was always monogramming, it actually makes the word DIE or D in German, which means the. So Die Bear Me is the Bear Me.
So you have been so prolific in all of the stuff that you've created, doing at least like 2 to 3 exhibitions every single year, right?
Yeah, I would say that it probably averages that much. I'll like do a bunch in one year, and then I'll take on a more extensive project like this that might take months to accomplish, but I think it probably averages 2 or 3 a year.
There's the hanged man, the hanged bear. And so you can see all of Tara's artwork on your website. What's your website?
It's bearmy.com, bearmy.com.
There's the emperor. So the final thing I want to talk about is the obvious, which is the fact that these cards are triangular. And I don't even know if that was like an original thing that you had put out there. I feel like we were already talking about doing this.
Yeah.
So I've never ever seen a triangular shaped deck before.
Well, you know, I'm a lover of triangles.
This is true. Yes.
The first house I lived in as a child had a triangle on the front, and I've just always been drawn to math and shapes and geometry, but the triangular in particular, like presently, in theosophical belief, it's the top 3 chakras. Like your 4 bottoms make a square, and the top 3 make the triangle. So it's actually like the top 3 energy sources. Or,
oh, I love that.
You know, and then Christian people believe it's the Trinity. I mean, I think that
Sure, and in Kabbalah it'd be the supernals, the top 3 spheres of the tree.
I feel like most people have some relation to the triangle, or they have a meaning. It means something to somebody everywhere.
Yeah. So the way that we worked on this deck was, first, Tara had me write down all of the keywords for the cards, and I was really trying to come up with just like fresh ideas, not just do it sort of like this is what the book says, or this is even what my typical understanding is, but just to sit down and just kind of get into the flow and write down just a few keywords, the ideas I had for each card. And we also wanted to include the traditional correspondences on all the majors. So you can see, for instance, on the High Priestess card, you can see the moon is there. Is there a desert squirrel?
Yeah.
So you can see that the zodiacal and planetary correspondences are on all of the majors. So I gave her those, and then you started creating the imagery. And then I think it was during that part of the process that you said, oh my God, what if these cards were triangular?
Yeah, I actually when I first went and spoke to the people about getting them made and kind of the process of what that was going to take, I was actually driving home and it hit me that why not make them triangles?
And as soon as she said that, I was like, that is absolutely brilliant. Because I started thinking about all the really cool ways that the spreads could work, that you could actually put these together and create all kinds of cool sort of sacred geometry things. And so the more that we have actually played with these, the more that we've started to realize how many cool little things you could do. And the first thing that I thought of when she was describing this was those snake Rubik's cubes that they had like in the 80s, where it was long, it was made out of triangles, and you could fold it into all different kinds of shapes. And the snake, of course, has a total desert correspondence as a desert reptile. And so we ended up making spreads. Well, I guess the next part of the process, just to do it sort of chronologically, was that you started working on the images.
Yes.
And she was cranking these out and sending them to me, and I was just like, oh my God, these are amazing, awesome. And then from her images, here's the Magician. You can see we've got Mercury. This is one of my favorite cards.
Yeah, the galaxy flowing through them, as above, so below.
Yeah, I love it. So once she sent these back to me, then I wrote a deeper meaning about each card that I kind of used from just looking at her imagery and kind of her explanation of how she took my keywords and created the images. And so we really just kind of passed it back and forth. And then we created a big poster that has all of the meanings that I wrote and then all of the images on it as well. Another thing I love that you made was the snake, the Ouroboros, the snake biting its own tail. You can see it around the waist of the magician.
That's his belt.
And then you can see it on the back of the cards as well. So this little snake eating its own tail. Now the last part of what was created for this deck was actually the spreads. So like I said, there's all different kind of cool ways. Let's see if we can make like the hexagram. So I'm going to show you guys the insert that comes with this deck. So this has a little bit more explanation about the suits and how they correspond, and then each of the meanings that I wrote. For instance, for 8 of feathers, the limitations that you perceive are an illusion. Don't buy into false projections. You are much more capable of achieving your goals than others would like you to believe. When I did the majors, I wrote them all in the first person. So I was inspired by Alejandro Jodorowsky in his book Way of the Tarot, when he writes if the major arcana was speaking, what it would say. So I was kind of thinking about that idea, and I just looked at each image and said, you know, tell me something. So for instance, this guy, I love this guy, Temperance. So he says, I am a healer and I allow for resetting, rebalancing, and calibrating. I come to your assistance when you've lost your way, gone too far, or fallen overboard. Moderation, maintenance, and self-care will get you back on track. And then I also gave a little quote for each of the majors, and his is check in and check up. So these are the spreads, and there's 3 that I created. The first one is the heart, the second one is the snake, and the third one's the pyramid. So here are the spreads, and they're pretty simple, but they each have a placement. For instance, with the snake, there's the thing for you to shed, the thing for you to fuel, the thing for you to focus your vision on. But I really feel like this deck will lend itself to all kinds of cool spreads and all sorts of really neat mandalas.
You're literally making a triangle right now, your body.
I'm so excited about this. You know, the fact of being able to collaborate not only with somebody that I love so much, that I've known forever, we've known each other for over 20 years, but also to see, you know, people are constantly telling me, Naha, you should make a tarot deck. And I think I'm not an artist. Like, I can come up with some ideas and some descriptions, but I think that there's too many tarot decks where people who maybe are ceremonial magicians try to create their own deck rather than finding an artist to do it for them. For instance, think about the Rider-Waite deck. Waite wanted to create the deck, but he got Pamela Coleman Smith to do the pictures. Crowley's Thoth deck, he probably had in his mind what he wanted to look like, but he got Frida Harris to paint the paintings. And they also were magicians. You know, Pamela Coleman Smith was in the Golden Dawn just like Waite was. And Tara is very much a magical practitioner of herself, where I'm of the Hermetic and Kabbalistic studies. She is in the yogic and theosophical studies. So we're covering a lot of ground here. Southwestern culture as well. I know you said that some of your artwork was inspired by the Kachinas.
Yes,
and
that's true.
Didn't your grandmother actually?
She did do embroidery of Kachinas, and she collected Kachinas, and I'm trying to find it. The death card is also, it has the body of the scorpion, has the legs because it's obviously Scorpio, but the head is the image of the priest killer, which is the Kachina that kind of slayed the Christian people that came. So it has a very big correlation to death, which is the death card. So
Totally.
the priest killer is one of my favorite Kachinas. So
And for people who don't know, Kachina
it's Hopi.
and it's a sacred image created. They're usually carved into dolls or
Yeah, and they have ceremonies where they dress as them. they're like the star people. They're the sacred people. So I don't want to speak on it too much because it's kind of a mystical thing, and I don't want to misspeak. But it's a very interesting culture that I'm kind of in the middle of learning about right now.
Well, yeah, and if you're living here in the desert, it's something that's totally woven into the culture here.
Yes, I attend powwows, the real deal powwows, and it's mind blowing. Like, if anyone thinks that they're good at beadwork or you know, have soulful ceremonies, like you go there and you're humbled very quickly because it's beyond magical or anything you could imagine. It's just that the culture is so deep and it's so colorful and it's so sacred. It's something I want to know more about, and I have the utmost respect for their traditions because they're just very mind-blowing.
Well, I often tell my students, if you want to understand the suits better, if you want to understand the minor arcana, study the medicine wheel, because that is the Native American expression of the exact same ideas, the 4 elements, the 4 directions, and the medicine wheel not only is divided into quarters, but it's also surrounded in the ring. That ring is spirit, and that is the element that binds everything together, that contains everything, that combines and creates everything in the universe.
I gotta get my dog.
So here's the suits again of the desert Bearot. Is there anything else that you want to say or share? Mixtape, do you have anything to chime in?
No, it's just it's been a really cool experience making this deck. I feel like, you know, it really pushed it from the last deck we did together. And the first one I made just because I wanted to understand tarot, and I figured that was the best way to learn. And it's been 5 years, and I feel like I've learned a lot in those 5 years, but there's still so much. I mean, I feel like it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is.
And I think, you know, we should just keep making them every 5 years and check in. And
I'm down.
Okay.
Next deck is going to be holographic and totally multi-dimensional. You can buy this deck. 99 copies were printed. They're all numbered, they're all signed, and I will leave the link down below where you guys can purchase the deck if they're still available. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Lost Dutchman and the Superstition Mountains.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mixtape. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.
General.
Oh, thanks, Phoenix General. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.